How did enslaved people, slaves, how did slaves resist slavery? How did they try to fight back from these harsh lives that they were living? Some historians have pointed out that there were far fewer organized slave rebellions in Saint Dominique than in nearby colonies. Many find this surprising, considering the successful revolt that eventually took place, which means they didn't have a lot of small rebellions that were organized, but they did have that one revolt, that one fight that was successful in getting them their freedom. Scholars have attributed this relative lack but enslaved people found other ways to resist slavery besides an open fight or openly fighting with them. Infanticide, which is killing one's own child, was one way. They didn't want a child that was going to just be born into slavery, so they would kill their own child when it was born, or they would kill themselves with suicide. They also resisted slavery by developing plots to kill the master or the overseer. That was not uncommon. For many, resistance to slavery also meant finding ways to reaffirm their human dignity. This line right here is really important to understand. To reaffirm their human dignity. Like they were constantly being treated like almost like an animal or property. So they didn't feel human anymore. Like every day, the way they were being treated, it no longer felt they were human. It felt like they were more an animal working for these slave owners. So in order to remind themselves and to feel their humanity and to remind themselves that they had feelings and they had emotions and they had connections to other people, they would do different things. So that's what it means by reaffirming their human dignity. They wanted to remind themselves that they were human and they were worthy of being treated well. So, for example, the ways that they resisted this and remembered that they were human: enslaved people across the island practiced voodoo. So remember, when they practiced voodoo, they were kind of saying, screw you. They hid it, and they didn't want the slave owners to know because they could be punished. But they still did it, so they took a little bit of a risk because it felt good to them, because it reminded them of their humanity. Other cultural activities, such as dancing, gave enslaved people ways to express themselves and have lives independent from the confines of slavery. So dancing and connecting with the other slaves and falling in love with another slave, all of that reminded them of their humanity. So that's why they danced, and that's why they practiced voodoo, because all of that was helpful to keep their sanity during the horrible conditions they were living with.